Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Become a Villain in High School DXD Part 7, Chapter 21. Party Crashing. Previously we saw Issei and the others discuss the candidates for his droid faction. He did not find anything worthwhile in both Mio and her sister. They eventually agree on taking them in, by force if they have to. However, their attention is then directed to the magic circle that opened up, and this was revealed to be Gabriel. She told them that he meant them no harm. Soon afterwards, the Mocha sisters were revealed. They tried to hug Issei, but he does not remember. After recollecting his memories, he remembers them. He reunites as they all go inside to catch up. They then explain their situation to the rest of the group as they became even more disgusted at what Ria's Gremory and Dai Haidu did. Issei also revealed what he has been doing for the past few months as they were surprised that Issei had changed. Nevertheless, they refused to change their relationship for him and became even more closer to him. Issei was happy with this as they all go inside so that Issei could settle them down in the house. At night, Issei was working on the gauntlets for Innovate Clear and Tilo's Karma as Nyx joins in. Issei then asks her to fire an attack at her. Nyx was reluctant, but she accepted this as she does fire the attack at Issei, who manages to change its trajectory leaving him unharmed. They then rest for the night as they have a good day. The next day, Sona confronts Saji for his actions as Saji points out that she is also to blame, but Sona refuses to take responsibility and she tells that she can ruin his life even more, with Saji vowing to take revenge from Quinella and Charlotte for ruining his life as Momo and Ria watch in sadness on their crushes change. After a while, Issei along with Quinella and Charlotte check their sleeper agents, Asia and the newly acquired Gasper, as Issei commands them to infiltrate the Gremory peerage, which they do so. As they return back to the Orc, they are embraced by Rias as they do what Issei asks them to do. They all prepare for the party. Meanwhile, Issei visits Gondal and they both get ready to head for the party. However, before that Issei makes a visit to Inner Gondal as she asks what does he want to achieve. After telling her his intentions, he leaves as the duo get ready for the party. The girls who were not going for the party were all ready to take down Kuo Academy once and for all. Meanwhile, both the Neru sisters discuss on what is going on in the Devil Kingdom as well as their contacts with the magicians as they prepare for the party. However, they will soon realize that their fun will be their worst nightmare. Gondal's residence, 8 p.m. Miyuki, are you sure of this? Issei looked at his student and she had a stern look on her face. She heard of Issei sending both Charlotte and Quinella to the party and she also wanted to join as well. I am strong enough to handle Sona right now. I can hold myself pretty well. Issei narrowed his gaze and responded in a stern voice. It's never too nice to have this much confidence, Miyuki. Miyuki gulped in agreement. She got carried away as she apologized. Sorry Lord Issei. Issei sighed and spoke with a slightly serious tone. Never let vengeance control you, Miyuki. Always, let it guide you, else, you may never achieve it. Miyuki nodded intently. She was the most attentive student that was a part of the droid faction. Furthermore, she was able to learn all the spells that Charlotte and Quinella managed to teach her. I understand, Miyuki nodded and responded as she spoke, but my decision remains unchanged. Issei sighs, the girl was stubborn, he will give her that once she makes up her mind. She does not give up, he then spoke. Very well, but you will be introduced as Miyuki Citri, which will be your original name. Miyuki nods in agreement. She wanted to bring ruin to the Citri clan as Issei speaks. But bringing you into the New Devils, that may be an issue, Issei spoke with a thought. I think you should do it the same way you introduced both Charlie and Quinn, Miyuki suggested Issei, who nodded as she spoke. I will even remove my pendant and show some of my power to prove I am from the Citri clan and then we can handle the 4 New Devils. 4? I thought there were only 3, that being Stella and Mio Nerus as well as Claire Phoenix. Miyuki shook her head as she responded. It just turned out that recently even Ryuka Glaciolabolas has decided to receive her evil pieces, so the Devil Elders have approved her request. Miyuki spoke with a smile as Issei nods. He knew exactly what he needed to do. He had the unknown dictator. It was time to show what the balance breaker is capable of. Well, in that case, get ready. Tonight is your big debut and beginning of the fall of the Citri clan. Miyuki beams at this as she smiles. She nods, happy due to Issei giving her a chance. The supernatural world, especially the devils, will be shocked by my appearance, and yours, Issei spoke as he grins evilly at what he had planned. This is the first step to ruin the grand party of the supernatural. He had planned several more programs to completely destroy the bonds of the supernatural faction. Moments later, Gondal comes in with a new dress as Issei, and Miyuki was surprised by this as she asks, are you ready for this, my lord? Issei nods as he also teleports, but not before changing his dress. Indeed we are, so shall we? Gondal nods as Issei asks, I wonder what your granddaughter would think when she finds out that I am your partner. Gondal responded with a smile as she spoke with a sarcastic tone, She would be surprised when she finds out that her future grandfather. Issei chuckled at the joke she made as he responds. Her face will be shocked that her supposed lover is now with her grandmother. Gondal chuckled at the joke as she continued, but I believe that her face would end in a disaster, along with her mood. I am not going to lie, she messed up big time. Issei spoke with a slight anger as he then continued, well, let's not think of her and move with the party. I wouldn't have it any other way. Gondal speaks as she locks her hand with Issei's arm, with them teleporting to the location in the underworld. Miyuki also soon teleports alongside them, wearing a completely different formal dress to show herself to the world. Grand Party, Lucifer Territory, Underworld, 9:30 p.m. In the underworld everyone was preparing for the party, where the waiters began to receive everyone that had come to the party. All members of the 34 demons had come, as they wanted to see the girls. They only heard that 4 members were coming into the party. Why do I have a bad feeling about this? Sona spoke. While she sat down, she saw some devils looking at her in pity. While the others look at her with a mocking look on her face, her reputation was as good as gone, in both the human world and the supernatural world. I believe her time will come. A devil spoke with a mocking tone. No, I think the red dragon will settle all her accounts with her sooner than later. Another devil spoke with a mocking tone. I understand that he did not kill her out of pity, but I think that will soon change. A third demon spoke. These were the comments Sona Sitri was getting, as she grits her teeth in anger. Some of these comments were even directed at Seraphil, who was declared a runaway and would be declared dead. Sona couldn't do anything to silence, she couldn't blame anyone but herself, she hated what was happening to her, she looked around to see even Riaz was facing a similar issue, she couldn't show herself without people mocking her or looking down on her. Adding insult to injury, she started to hate Issei for his actions. It is a great pleasure to have all of you come forward for this event. Today is the day several devils will be announced as high-class devils tonight. Surziches spoke with a happy tone as Ajuka then looked at the datapad, however he was surprised by what he saw. There should be only 4, but how can there be 7? Ajuka muttered loud enough for only Surziches to hear as he speaks. 7? But there should be only 4. Who could be the 3? Surziches spoke silently as he looked at the screen. Ajuka tapped the names and was shocked by what he saw. No way, it's them. Surziches spoke, seeing Charlotte Beelzebub and Quinella Asmodeus, and the third name he saw made him agape, and it can't be Miyuki. Surziches turned his gaze towards Sona, who was confused at this, she was not aware of this, as he then turned away, as Sona became even more confused. How can she be alive? Surziches looked at Ajuka as he spoke to his friend, I don't know, and I believe that she was the only person that knows about this. Could this be Haidu's doing? Surziches spoke nervously, to which Ajuka responded, I believe it is him. We can't do anything, we'll just announce, he will be coming soon. Surziches muttered, to which Ajuka nodded. The other leaders wondered what was Ajuka thinking as Ajuka announced. Sorry, there was some technical difficulties, but I believe that instead of 4 candidates, we will be having 7 candidates, each one will be having a set of evil pieces delivered to them. Ajuka spoke, shocking everyone, but it was a welcome surprise. The devils smiled arrogantly, knowing that the 4 girls were chosen by them. However, before anyone could say anything, a muffled scream was heard. The leaders and some of the devils quickly walked to the location, as the guard pointed out that a familiar magic circle opened up, it had the circle of the Welsh dragon. The leaders recognized who this was, as Zeus grits his teeth in fury, along with Sona Sitri, who weren't happy in seeing him here. A while later, Issei Haidu stepped out wearing a formal suit. He had worn a black suit, a grey jacket, a white shirt and a purple tie. However, what surprised her was that who came along with him, she was a white-haired woman who had her hair tied up, she wore a yukata, with her shoulders were bare, the edges of the yukata was fuchsia, with the main color being purple and having a floral pattern on it. The bow around her waist was colored with grey with a diamond pattern on it. You are one lucky boy, Auden thought in amazement. In just a few months, he was able to turn his life upside down. The person who had come with him was none other than Roswis's grandmother, Gondal. Fu, Gondal chuckled as she continued, it seems like we are attracting a lot of attention. Gondal spoke as she pulled Issei towards her, after all he was her partner to this. What is the meaning of this? Roswis asked her grandmother with a tone full of surprise, since, when did you know him? Roswis was surprised to see her grandmother behave so affectionately with someone whom she barely knew. Well, my granddaughter, since I did not have any partner to come to this grand party with, I asked Lord Issei to come, and he approved of this. Gondal spoke with a smile, as she asked with an innocent face, did I do something wrong? But he can't be here, he is forbidden. Sona spoke with a bit of fear and anger, as Issei shook his head and responded, did you see a sign where it states, Red Dragon Emperor Issei Haidu is prohibited from entering? Gondal spoke with a mocking tone, as Sona looked at her with a murderous look, she however, had the fear that Issei may hurt her if she tried anything with Gondal. Issei ignored Sona and asked in a mocking tone, and besides, you did receive my gift, didn't you Ajuka? Ajuka nods. Upon Issei's questioning, he and Surziches wondered what Issei was doing here, but despite this, he wanted to ask. But even then, why are you even here? Why does this party interest you, since you have had no intention of being involved with the factions? Ajuka spoke seriously, as Gondal answered him. I told you, Lord Beelzebub, I wanted to bring him here, on my own accord, so what is the issue? Did I do something wrong? Ajuka was silent. He got his answer that Issei was here to only enjoy the party, as Roswis then asked. Branny, does that mean you are wanting to have a relationship with him? Roswis asking courteously, as Gondal gave a smirk. Issei decided to give her an answer in his own way. He decided to bring Gondal towards him and give him a kiss on her mouth, which caught everyone including inner Gondal off guard as she looked at Issei with a flustered look. After splitting up, leaving Gondal agape by what just happened, even she had a blush on her face as Issei spoke. Does this answer your question? Roswis was beat red upon seeing this, that it put Ria's hair to shame. Some of the group like Ria's Gremory, Sona Citri and Roswis watched the scene in disbelief, others like Laisha Astareth, Sekvera Gares, and a few watched the scene in surprise. They never expected this to happen. This relationship cannot happen, she is already a widow, Brother Ika spoke trying to reason, but Issei looked at her and responded. I dated Yusaka, and she was already widowed, with a kid, so I don't think you should judge me, Ika. Issei spoke coldly, to which Ika realized this and apologized for her actions. Issei sighed as he spoke. Some like Valerie Lucifer and Ingvald Levithan looked at the scene in amusement as they knew that Gondal was on the side of Issei, but they weren't expecting a relationship. Either way, they were happy to see the faces of the faction leaders. Others like Kusha Abandon and Coriana and Realfus watched the scene in surprise as they gave a disappointing glare to Issei, who ignored them, while Sayerg stopped them and tried to divert their attention to some other location. Granny, it's unhealthy to have a relationship with someone so young, especially someone who is almost younger than me. Roswis muttered the last part while trying to make her grandmother see reason as she tried to make her reflect on her current choices as she did not bother looking at Roswis and spoke with a smile. This is a party right and I chose him as my consort and it's best if they continued with party. Gondal spoke while she took Issei by the arm as she walked ahead. Auden then spoke with a mocking tone. It seems like he is building up a harem. Auden spoke as he watched the scene in a smile as Sona muttered with disbelief. This can't be true, how can someone this cruel have a harem? Sona spoke as Auden spoke while narrowing his gaze. That's your problem, I would advise you to leave him alone, Auden spoke while leaving to have a drink. Well, forgetting the incident with the Red Dragon Emperor, I believe it is time to start up with the party. Ajuka pointed towards Issei and Gondal, who did not seem guilty about this, as he continued, let us continue with the presentation of the 7 new devils. Ajuka said with a smile, earning the nods of all the devils, as they all watched the door with interest. Moments later, the door opened up, where 7 beautiful women came. Sona widened her eyes. When she saw the last woman, she started sweating profusely. She knew this was Miyuki Shiba, whom she believed to be Miyuki Citri. This was noticed by Issei Haidu, who thought with an evil grin, the show is just getting started, my dear Sona Citri. The first girl was Stella Nares. She wore a pink yukata with yellow and orange flower engravings, the bow was red and the hair was tied in 2 coves by 2 yellow bows. Many blushed when she showed up like this. The next one was Mio Nares, who wore a red yukata that faded to black with an engraving of pink flowers. The sash around her waist was pink with a red thread tied to her waist. Her hair was tied up with black waists. The next one was wearing a deep blue gown with matching evening gloves with gold hoop bracelets, some sort of white flower tied at her waist with a golden necklace, her hair adorned with black ribbons. This was Ryuka Glaciolabolas. The fourth to be seen was Claire Phoenix. She wore a strapless red dress. Her blonde hair was tied with ribbons of the same color as her dress. Many blushed on how the 2 girls looked. The fifth was the one that surprised the most. It was Quinella Asmodeus. She wore a party dress, which is black in color with a light purple ribbon. She emitted some murderous intent, as she hated the beings in the room, except for her eyes, and a few of the people present. Additionally, she brought a sword as an ornament. Many knew that she belonged to the Red Dragon Emperor, and they feared what would happen if they tried to flirt or even go near her. Beside her was Charlotte Beelzebub, who wore a beautiful white shoulder dress that reached above her elbow, gold jewelry, and a tiara, a red ribbon edged in gold. They looked away from Charlotte as well, since they both did not want to mess with her. Despite this, she had an aura of peace and love, however it was only directed to the one she truly loved. She looked at the scene with an annoyed look. And the final girl was Miyuki Citri. She wore a black empire cut dress with white details. She used a simple pearl-shaped necklace with a flower-shaped pendant. They outdid themselves, Issei muttered while having a blush looking at Quinella and Charlotte. Even Miyuki was looking attractive tonight as Gondal kept her hand, knocking him out of his trance. He remembered that this was not the time to party. These 7 are the center of attention tonight, can you all please give them a round of applause? Ajuka spoke, earning a round of applause from many present in the group. Give it up for these women. He is not wrong, Issei spoke, as he noticed Sona's nervous expression, along with several of the others widening their eyes in surprise, seeing Miyuki among the ones in the party. Lord Issei. Surziches looked towards Issei, who turned his attention to Surziches as he asked, is that Miyuki Citri? Why don't you ask Sona Citri about this? Issei spoke with a smile, as Surziches nods. So far Issei has not lied to him, even once. What Surziches doesn't know is that Issei is good in hiding the truth at this point. Sona, I believe you can recognize her, right? Sona gulps as she looks at Surziches. She knew that Issei knows what they have done and believed that he was the one that rescued Miyuki from her house. I asked you a question, Sona, would you please answer? Surziches spoke with a stern tone. He had an idea that Sona and the Citri clan, with Serafal, had lied to him about her death. Why yes, that's her. Sona spoke the truth. She had no choice but to speak the truth, otherwise she would be in trouble. Surziches narrowed his gaze as he asked in a stern tone. Then, why did you lie about her? Surziches spoke with a tone of anger, as the other leaders were also looking at her. With this point, she sweated nervously, as Surziches spoke with the same tone of anger, but at an increased volume. I ask you a question, Sona Citri, why did you lie about her? Sona was almost on the verge of a mental breakdown, as Surziches glared at her. Issei came from the sidelines and spoke. I will tell you the answer. Issei spoke, looking at all the leaders, as Auden asked, what is that you know? And these devils don't. Issei chuckled at Auden's question as he turned to Miyuki and spoke. Or how about this, let's hear it from the horse's mouth, right Miyuki? Miyuki nodded with a smile as she spoke. I am not going to lie, every word I say will be the truth. If you don't believe me, you can check my memory, right? The leaders nod in response. I was kept hidden by the Citri clan for the past 12 years, Lord Lucifer. I have never experienced the outside world of the supernatural, let alone the human world, Miyuki spoke with a sad smile. Many were surprised by this, some felt pity for her, while those that hated Sona Citri glared at her, who was on the verge of crying, as Miyuki looked at her sister and spoke coldly and seriously. But this was all a devious plan, conjured by Sona Citri and Serafal Leviathan. They wanted me imprisoned, they wanted me to never see the light of day again, they kept me here on purpose, it was all their purpose. Miyuki's words caused many to discuss among themselves. Sona was close to losing it. But, your words, Miyuki, don't get us wrong, but your words are hard to believe. Surziches spoke in disbelief, as Ajuka nodded. He did not want to believe the words, as Riaz exclaimed. Why, you're lying. Sona would never do something to her own sister, Riaz exclaimed in a completely tone of disbelief. She was thinking that it was Issei manipulating her younger sister against her best friend. Riaz has already almost lost everything, her status, her lover and her reputation, all of which went down the drain ever since Issei revealed everything about Dai Haidu to her. She hated what happened to her, but couldn't blame everything on him. She now did not want to lose her best friend. Issei, on the other hand, hardly felt any sympathy for her, seeing her desperate face. He was happy seeing her in this condition. He lost any sympathy for her a long time ago. Now, all he sees is a crying spoiled brat who lost everything. He also knew that the RageRevan family are also assisting him in the information, and he would soon receive all the shares and money of the Devil and Fallen Angel companies, since without funding, they all would suffer, big time. In that case, why don't you see her memories for further proof? Issei spoke with a smile, causing Riaz to stand down. She looked at Sona, who was already in despair, as Issei asked, or I have a better idea, Gabriel. Why yes. Gabriel looked surprised by Issei calling her, as he spoke, read Sona Citri's heart, Riaz will believe me after that. Yes, I will. Gabriel spoke sadly. She knew that Issei is not lying, since she knew or had an idea about his true intentions. As she sensed her heart, she widened her eyes in shock as she exclaimed, you are a monster, Sona Citri. Michael was surprised by this tone of Gabriel as he asked, sister, what happened? Everything Miss Miyuki spoke is true. Sona Citri and Serafal Leviathan did all of this, but that is not all. They feared what she was capable of. She was a potential candidate to a super devil. Gabriel exclaimed, looking at her brother. She never liked Serafal because of her childish nature and attitude, as well as her rivalry, but this is where she was disgusted at her for her jealous actions. Now you see, Riaz, this is the truth, but I am not done yet. The whole Citri family was complicit in this. Issei declared, as many were shocked at this. They all glared at Sona Citri, who was immensely crying due to this. Her whole reputation, her whole status was gone. Nowhere will she be respected. To add insult to injury, the whole Citri clan will be taken down due to Sona and Serafal's actions. As they all watched in horror, some booed and jeered at them. They hated her even more, and at this point almost everyone wanted her gone. Surziches and Ajuka were in disbelief as Issei spoke. I can show you her memories, shall I proceed? Surziches shook his head and responded, no, that won't be necessary. Serzic spoke with an emotionless tone. His best friend lied to him about something important, and this will not go unpunished. However, before he could speak anything, the leader of the council, Wilbert Nehru, spoke. He was not happy with what was going on. He was described a well-built man with red hair and matching colored eyes, who has horns that seem to be twisted near the tip, elf-like ears and tattoos that appears to be on a portion of his face and goatee. He is also shown to be dressed in noble clothing. He glared at Sona and spoke. Lady Sona Sitri will no longer attend this party. Wilbert spoke coldly as he looked at her with disgust. Your punishment will be decided tomorrow. Since today is a day of celebration, not sadness, your leave will take place immediately. Do I have any objections? Sona shook her head, still under the stress. As she walked away, her movement was sluggish and lifeless, as there was pin-drop silence. Once she left, Serzic spoke. I apologize for her actions. I hope this does not hamper our alliance in any way. The leaders shook their head as Shiva spoke. I wouldn't say much, but her actions have jeopardized the alliance. And had Lady Leviathan. Shiva was interrupted by Wilbert, who spoke. I am sorry for the interruption. Lord Shiva, Seraphil will no longer be considered as Lady Leviathan Serzic, and many devils widened their eyes in shock due to this. However, they stayed silent. I hope you don't mind. Serzic nods as Wilbert looks at him. The man was never a fan of the Grimmery clan due to his past with them. Serzic and Ajuka clenched their fist, not only due to Seraphil's dismissal, but also on her betrayal. Shiva nods in response. I agree, very well. Where was I? Oh yeah, Seraphil Sitri. Had she kept this hidden, then this would have caused major problems for everyone. You had a potential devil who could have made a better candidate for the Leviathan position, and this is why you lost someone important. Wilbert and Serzic nods, as Wilbert then asks with slight worry. I do, Sama, I hope that you don't have any problems. Issei shrugs and responds. Like I said, for a lot of times, not my monkeys, not my circus. Wilbert nods, as many sweat drop. This dialogue has been quite remembered across the factions. As he continues, your problems aren't mine, and Miyuki will be under my protection. Does things clear up? Wilbert nods. He did not want to provoke him in any way. They wouldn't have ever know about Miyuki, and now, they have lost a very strong devil. He knew the three girls were only there to reclaim what is rightfully theirs. Mio was surprised by this, due to her arrogant nature. She looked down upon many devils, due to this, as well as beings of the other races, to see her father terrified of him. She looked down on every being. This included everyone except the devils, or more accurately higher class or beyond. However, she did show respect to those that deemed respect. Seeing her father act like this still surprised her. Basically, her father seemed to not risking to anger Issei. She knew he was strong, and she had to also follow her father, lest she not meet the same fate as many who dared taunt or defy him. Stella gulped, seeing the situation. She may be a princess, but unlike her sister, she was not that arrogant. Nevertheless, she was surprised that her father, who used to gain respect one way or another, showed worry and fear against him. Hopefully, she manages to get out of the situation safely. Claire sighed. She had a feeling this would happen. She knew that Issei was cruel. She wondered whether even giving herself to Issei would be enough. She knew Issei was not perverted, as he did not show interest in the girls that were offered to him, and she knew that Issei did not take advantage of him. Furthermore, she also knew that Issei did have hatred for the Phoenix family due to what majority of the clan members had treated him. This would be difficult than she had anticipated. Ryuka was quiet. She never tried to talk to her friend Leisha. Ever since she was given to Issei Haidu, she feared that Leisha may hate her, primarily due to her actions. But she feared that if she visited Haidu, Issei might intercept and kill her. She was afraid that if she would try something wrong, Issei may kill her. Charlotte and Quinella smiled, seeing the leader's state, as they were aware that Issei has already created tremors in the supernatural. Even Miyuki was happy that she will soon get justice, and the architects of her pain would suffer. The three girls knew that Issei would be there for all to see, that they are all safe and sound. That was the trait Issei had for those that he truly cared for. Issei watched as the party settled down. The good thing was that Wilbert dared not oppose him. He then spoke silently and mockingly. Apparently those old people are too scared to make a move. Gondal nodded as she responded. You can't expect much from them, they are always like that, but they are not as stupid as before to try something against you. Gondal spoke as she rested her head on Issei's shoulder. Inner Gondal blushed at what her other self was doing. She was happy that Issei did not try anything with her, but love, that was a whole different story. It takes time to develop. Well, aside from that, you should be concerned about your granddaughter. She is too horrified by what she is seeing. Issei spoke mockingly while looking at Roswis, who was jealous at this. She was beet red and was glaring at Issei. You can't do much for her. If she continues living the way she is, she will always remain single. Gondal spoke calmly, as Issei sighs. Even Inner Gondal had to reluctantly agree with her counterpart. Roswis was too rigid because of her attitude. I understand, but let's just let it work out for now. Issei spoke normally, to which Gondal nodded. She then got up as she watched the devils conversing with the main attraction of the party. Meanwhile, as this was going on, there was a conversation that was happening between Claire and Ravel, who were catching up, with the former having a bored look on her face, while the latter desperately and miserably tries to change the subject. It was all I's fault, he cheated on me. Claire only shook her head as she responded coldly. You can't put the blame on him, Ravel, that's not how it works. How can you screw this up so badly? Ravel retorted angrily. But even then. He deceived and betrayed me. This earned a glare from the second oldest Phoenix child as she spoke coldly. Don't play the fool, sister, now thanks to that our clan is history. Claire then spoke angrily, also don't pretend that you are not at fault, you went with him just because he was good looking. Ravel looked away in response. But sister, if I can explain it to the people, they will understand my motives. Claire shook her head and responded seriously. That's not how it works. You know that the people blame the DXD group and the pillars, primarily because they have no one else to blame for what is currently happening. Claire glared at Ravel, who widened her eyes in surprise as she countered. That means if we defeat Malak and the droid faction, then everything will go back to normal. Ravel asked with a hopeful smile as Claire facepalmed, even if they somehow, keyword being somehow, manage to fix the situation, the stain on the clan is irremovable and it will never go away. It doesn't work that way. You can't defeat Malak and his faction, especially Grievous, since they have moped the floor with all of you more than once. Claire spoke seriously, to which Ravel looked away. And even if you did defeat him somehow, the clan's reputation is tarnished to the point of no return. It would take a miracle to even recover the current status, let alone improve its influence. Claire sighed, she understood her sister was betrayed and fooled by Dai Haidu. She could only blame him for what had happened, but even then, everyone that looked down upon Issei, everyone that treated him like garbage and humiliated him, were all responsible. Leisha was looking at the scene, as she sighed, she was approached by Ryuka, as she spoke nervously. Leisha. Leisha turned her attention to Ryuka, she looked away immediately, except Sekiruuyetei, she hated the four Satans for pretty much making her Issei's fiancé, without her consent. No one came for her. Aside from that, this included Ryuka as well. She had heard her parents contact her, but they never visited the Haidu residence, and she started to hate them for that. Leisha, please wait. Ryuka exclaimed, as Leisha looked at her coldly, as she spoke in a similar tone. What do you want, Ryuka? Leisha then continued in the same tone, you abandoned me before, so why can't you do it again? Ryuka looked away as she spoke. I was afraid that Haidu would attack me. Leisha scoffed at this, she heard that Hestia visited Athena without a problem, yet they couldn't. Besides, how are you doing? Better. I have been in a better state since I lost my own self, thanks to my uncle. Leisha spoke coldly and with spite in her tone, as Ryuka continued. I am glad. Ryuka spoke, as Leisha was ready to walk away. Wait. What? Leisha glared at her, as Ryuka flinched, she then spoke, I was wondering, should I visit you sometime later at the Haidu residence? Ryuka stuttered in slight worry, as Leisha turned away as she spoke. Do whatever you want. Leisha walked away, as she reached Sekiruuyetei, who spoke. That was kind of cold. Leisha sighed, she still had a little care for Ryuka, she understood her fear, but she did abandon her. In Leisha's eyes, Ryuka abandoned her, and she will never forget that. It hurts, even now I wonder what would have happened had we been engaged to someone like Zephyr. Leisha spoke with a tone hinting of fear, as Sekiruuyetei gulped at the prospect. She was happy to have been engaged to Issei instead, as over time, living with him, her fear of him started to go. She felt a small tinge of pain in her heart when she noticed Issei spending time with either Nyx, Charlotte, Quinella or even lately Mocha Amak and Mocha Yura. She decided to talk to him once this party gets over. For once, I am glad that Issei was our engaged partner, he never took advantage of us, and even then, he refused to even talk to us for a few days, knowing that we would be uncomfortable with him. Sekiruuyetei spoke with a genuine smile, as Leisha spoke. I agree, I even heard that he gives space to others, but at the same time he cares for others. Leisha spoke with a genuine smile, in agreement, she heard what happened with Athena, allowing them to have a proper respect for the man, he never forced anyone. And I pity Riaz, look at her, she will never get Issei, knowing that she screwed her only chance with him. Leisha spoke coldly, as Sekiruuyetei nodded in response. She tried to get us to like Dai, and we had a feeling that something was wrong with him, she told us that we would regret it. Sekiruuyetei shook her head as she continued, and look how the tables have turned. Sekiruuyetei spoke with a mocking tone. Indeed, well let's enjoy this party. Sekiruuyetei spoke, as Riaz was being consoled by her parents Vanellina and Zeocitus, both of whom were disgusted with Sona and her family for doing this to a mere child. Meanwhile, another conversation was taking place, and this time it was between Mio and Stella. I still don't understand, why would the Red Dragon attend a party like this? Mio spoke, remembering the Red Dragon was barely interested in what happens in the supernatural world, even his words were well remembered, not my monkeys, not my circus. Mio and Stella hated being called monkeys, but they had to stay quiet since to the Red Dragon, they are nothing but ants, as they watched Issei chat with Gondal, Quinella, Charlotte and Miyuki, and having a proper fun time with them, as if nothing ever happened. I think he is only here as a consort, as the Valkyrie said. Stella spoke, as Mio nodded, she then responded, he is not normal, sister, we need to be careful of them. Stella nodded on Mio's words, they then saw some of the faction leaders having sad or angered looks seeing Issei like this. One of them is Zeus, his relationship with the Olympians were getting worse every second, he completely blamed Issei for this, but knew that he would get killed if he did not keep his mouth shut, as he gritted his teeth in fury, seeing Issei enjoy his time here. Scene change, Kuo Academy, 10 p.m. The director of Kuo Academy could be seen being tied on the chair as he struggled to free himself. He seemed to be looking at terror at what seems to be a screen. He desperately tried to free himself, but unfortunately he was not being tied with ropes, but with chains. On the screen placed on the table, the screen was green with red numbers, it indicated a countdown of 2 hours, as time was ticking. 1:59 and 59 seconds. Chapter 22. Fall of a Symbol. Grand Party, Lucifer Territory, Underworld, 10:30 p.m. Issei and Gondal watch as the girls prepare to enter the rooms, as they do, they converse for a while. We wait, the 4 girls will prepare us for the real fun. Issei spoke with a smile, to which Gondal nods, she watched with intent, she then spoke. So what do you suggest? Issei shook his head on Gondal's question, as he spoke. Not now, we are being watched. Issei spoke seriously, as he eyed the elders of the Devil Council and Zeus, both of whom were worried about what he would do next. To the elders, Issei was unpredictable and cold-blooded because of his ruthless tendencies, as well as his cold-hearted nature, he did not care what happened to them, as they were not his problems anymore. They were always conceited, haughty and arrogant in nature, as they looked down upon reincarnated, low and middle-class devils, even some half-devils were no exceptions, the only reason Valerie, Ingvald, Charlotte and Quinella were exceptions was because they were related to the 4 Satans. As for Zeus, he hated Issei, not because of his ruthlessness, but because of him, he lost Athena completely, along with losing almost every support from his own faction. He was happy that Artemis had returned, but he blamed Issei, primarily for putting him in this situation. To him, Issei was the source of all of his problems, and he wanted to make him pay. But he fears Issei, only a few can terrify the Greek god of thunder, and Issei was one of them, he remembered the trauma Issei had put him through. He gave him an hallucination of being assaulted and beaten up while having no powers, as well as having his insides being ripped over and over again, until he begged for forgiveness. The good thing was that Issei only saw this, the bad thing was that his pride was hurt, and he could only watch as Issei happily chatted with Gondal, who was enjoying her time with him. Moments later, everyone then turns their attention to Wilbert, who decides to make an announcement. In a few moments, all the young women present will go inside a room where they will pass and tell us their dreams or goals. Wilbert had a smile on his face, he was proud of his daughters, despite him being very of Issei. I believe now would be a time to use it, Gondal whispered, as Issei understood her referring to the gauntlets that he had made, he had already told the plan to her and the rest of the girls. Yes, but for now, let us continue the fun. Issei spoke with a smile, as he pulled Gondal by the waist and attracted her to him. Ara, aren't you a possessive dragon? Gondal spoke with a seductive tone, to which Issei only chuckled. Well, I can't say much, you are pretty beautiful, how could I not be? Issei spoke as he brought Gondal closer with them kissing each other, not caring they were in public. This was seen by Roswis, who was red for 2 reasons, one was that someone she saw as her grandmother was doing an embarrassing thing in front of the public, and 2 was that it was out of jealousy on how happy Issei was with her. This is not fair, and even less so with him. Roswis thought seriously, she looked at Issei remembering how someone this cold could behave so lovingly with her grandmother. In that time, someone tapped her shoulder, this was revealed to be Irina Shidu, as her black wings shone behind her, she hid it, remembering her former status as Michael's ace, who had no choice but to remove her, due to her being a fallen. He still kept contact with her, despite this. She was depressed, due to her abandoning her childhood friend. Roswis noted that she had completely lost any motivation to do anything, as noticed by her sad expression. I don't think it would work for you to see them in jealousy. Irina spoke, as Roswis shook her head, and responded, that's not true, it is just that their relationship might be under fire due to my grandmother's status. Roswis spoke seriously, as Irina responded, you only say that because you don't approve, since they don't care about your opinion. Irina spoke sadly, as Roswis defended herself. That doesn't matter, I assure you that their relationship won't last long, and will end sooner than you realize. I wouldn't be so sure of that. The 2 girls were surprised by the unknown yet familiar voice, it was Gabriel, who continued, judging by that, their relationship seems to be serious, and even though you may think that it would end, she has something that you don't. And what is it that she has that I don't? Roswis spoke while crossing her hands in an impatient tone, as Gabriel responded with a smile. But she has confidence in herself. Roswis fell hard on hearing Gabriel's words as she retorted after a while. But Gabriel had already left with Irina as she asked, "You think it was okay for you to say those words to her?" Irina asked as Gabriel responded as she watched Roswis with her mouth open in shock. It was good since she wants to take her grandmother's place and be the center of attention. Gabriel spoke calmly as Irina was thinking. Gabriel then continued, "By the way Irina, don't forget to follow your heart and what I dictated to you." Gabriel spoke with a smile while thinking coldly, "Since I am doing just that. If you say so." Irina spoke as Gabriel walked away, leaving Irina thinking to herself on what she should do next. Meanwhile, Issei was watching as the girls prepared to go into the rooms. The first to pass was Stella, along with her twin sister Mio Neres, then it was Ryuka, followed by Claire, then Miyuki and finally Quinella and Charlotte, whom both look at Issei and give a side glance to Issei and nodded, implying that they will start their part of the plan. These rooms will be so easy to infiltrate, Issei thought mockingly, and nobody would even notice us. Issei looked towards Gondal who only was waiting for her orders. He watched as the event began, smiling as he anticipated for his chance to begin. Waiting room, grand party, Lucifer territory, underworld, 10 p.m. Mio and Stella were looking across their fellow devils as they all wondered what their wishes were. As they looked across, they had some plans for their future, especially three of them who were with Issei already. Apparently everyone seems to be thinking about their dreams. Mio thought as she looked at the others. "This is hard, I don't have any dreams of myself and my father will be making fun of me." Stella thought sadly as Ryuka thought with a determined tone. "I only want this to get over so that I can visit Leisha and fix my friendship. I think that in the end the Red Dragon is interested in a harem, this might be my chance," Claire thought with a smile, which changed into a sad thought remembering Gondal. "I only have one dream and that is the fall of the Citri clan." Miyuki thought with a determined tone. "We just have to get along with these people before they join us, one way or another," Quinella thought coldly, to which Charlotte looked at her and nodded. They had the same thought. Each one of them thought of how they will be reviewing the message, some felt nervous, others just smiled with some arrogance, while some were thinking different things, apart from what a great night it will be. Minutes went by, almost 30 minutes, as Issei looked at his watch, it showed him the time before the big event. 0:59 and 59 seconds. "Only an hour, man, I can't wait for the big event," Issei spoke silently as Gondal looked at him and asked, "So only an hour remains till midnight, huh?" Issei nods as he then speaks loud enough. "Well Gondal, how about we go somewhere private?" Issei spoke seductively as Gondal and Inner Gondal both had a slight blush on this as she spoke. "I am in." Gondal got up as she tugged her arm in his, they both started to move upstairs in the party as they headed to the roof. However, Roswis followed them, she wanted to see for herself on how close they are, as she did not want Issei to date her grandmother, she wanted to be with Issei, and she was jealous that her grandmother was taking her place. As this was going on, they were being watched by the three, formerly four great Satans. Serziches was watching this with a smile on his face, Ajuka was watching the scene with a serious look on his face. And finally Falbium was asleep, wearing a hat and glasses to not show that he was sleeping, he eventually fell on the floor. "Each one of you will be going through the door to enter the rooms one by one," Serziches instructed the girls as they all entered the rooms. The girls entered the rooms one by one, as the first one to enter was Mio, followed by Stella, then Claire, then Ryuka, then Quinella, then Charlotte and finally Miyuki. The three girls smiled as they began their plans. The plans for the party to turn into a disaster were soon to begin. "It seems like the rooms are well monitored." Mio spoke, since she was able to sense multiple presences. "True, after all the droid faction will attack us at any time, that is why these precautions." Quinella spoke feigning anger in her voice. "But shouldn't it be earlier if Malak wanted to attack us?" Charlotte asked with disbelief, to which Stella responded, "I think it is his intention to catch us off guard and strike us when we don't expect it." Quinella then spoke, as she smirked internally. "You have a point, it is doubtful that he will attack now." Quinella feigned worry as they all entered the rooms. Scene change. Roof, grand party, Lucifer territory, underworld, 10:30 p.m. Issei and Gondal were at the roof, they had a feeling that Roswis would follow them, due to Issei sensing her presence, she would be spying on them, as Issei spoke with a smile. Beyond Baylor. Issei's eyes became similar to that of when Gasper activates his balance breaker. And now, balance breaker. Time control. Issei activated one of the balance breakers of Eon Baylor, as he did not have any need for darkness manipulation right now. Time stopped for everyone, minus Gondal, Issei, Quinella, Charlotte, Miyuki and the other girls. Issei looked at Gondal as he spoke. "Well, it's time to transform." Issei transformed into Malak as he and Gondal started to head to the different rooms as he spoke in a mocking tone. "It's showtime." Issei grinned maniacally as he headed to the rooms the girls were in. His command reached the three girls inside, all of whom were ready for their plan. Their goal was to take down and turn all four girls to their side, either by turning them into sleeper agents or by asking them to willingly join them. The four girls were Ryuka Glaciolabolas, Claire Phoenix, Mio Nerus and Stella Nerus. They all looked around moving as if nothing wrong ever happened. They eventually felt a presence, an unnerving one in face. But the Claire spoke as she turned around seeing the girls all stopping dead in their tracks, all of whom were widening their eyes. "Are you girls alright?" Claire looked at the direction as she also widened her eyes in shock. The one in front of her was just like she had heard, a bald head, a red tight shirt, and a metal jaw. The man in front of her was none other than Malak. "Good evening, ladies." Malak greeted the ladies, all of whom widened their eyes seeing who was in front of them. Malak. Mio spoke with slight fear. "Is this some kind of a joke?" Mio exclaimed as Malak chuckled and spoke. "Oh no, my dear ladies, tonight is no joke, and it is a pleasure to meet all 7 of you ladies." Both Quinella and Charlotte had a blush knowing that it was Issei in the guise of Malak, but kept it in. Miyuki also had a small flustered look as Malak spoke, "And besides, you are not going to scream or something. The leaders are outside, and all we have to do is just shout." Quinella spoke while pretending to be angered as Mio responded. "That's right, all we need to do is go back there and tell the leaders." Mio spoke angrily with a grin, trying her best to be brave as Malak internally face-palmed. How stupid can these girls be? Issei thought as he got back into his Malak character. He scoffed and spoke with a joyful tone, like they will help you in this situation. "Not to mention, I should be thankful for the feast they have given me." Malak looked at the girls as they planned an escape, "And I thank 3 people for offering me this feast. Don't think you will get away with this." Claire spoke coldly as Malak responded. "If your Haidu did not stand a chance against me, what makes you think you will?" Malak spoke with a mocking tone. "You girls go, I will stall him off." Charlotte spoke as Quinella internally squealed in jealousy, knowing what Charlotte's real intentions as she spoke seriously. "Contact the Red Dragon Emperor, only he can stop us." Claire spoke with a growl as she accepted the situation. "Fine, we will get help as soon as you can." Claire spoke seriously as Malak turned to her and spoke. "Well then, Beelzebub, let's dance." Malak spoke mockingly as Charlotte looked at him seriously. The girls ran off as Malak scoffed and returned to Issei. Not bad, you put on quite a believable show." Issei spoke with a smile as Charlotte blushed. He then pulled her closer to her and made out for a while. Moments later, they split up and she spoke in a mocking tone. "I believe we should continue this show." Charlotte was happy that she stayed back as they both started to teleport to where Gondal was assigned. Issei then spoke. "Let the fun begin." Scene change. Outside the castle, Lucifer territory, underworld, 10:30 p.m. The 6 girls managed to make it outside as they then heard screams that belonged to Charlotte Beelzebub. I knew Quinella and Miyuki would have been horrified if they knew this was Charlotte actually in danger, but they knew that it was a lie. "Damn, what chance do we even have against him?" Quinella spoke feigning fear as Claire responded while looking away from her. "We still have the communications, but we need to get to a location since we can't teleport." Claire spoke while trying to teleport, but failing. The other girls also hated this, but Mio spoke with fear. "So in the end we have to return to that place." Mio pointed to the castle as Claire responded. "We have no choice, it is the only way we can contact Issei Haidu." Claire spoke seriously, earning reluctant nods as Stella spoke scared. "In the end all that remains is to return to that ugly place." Claire sighed as she responded. "So are you with me or not?" They all nodded again as they headed inside, not knowing that they were being watched by Gondal, who spoke to Issei. "They are coming inside, Lord Issei, I wish to join you guys as well." Gondal spoke with a smile as she teleported inside. Scene change. Inside the mansion, underworld, 11:20 p.m. Claire and the rest of the girls entered the mansion. They were vigilant to make sure to not alert Malak as he would be nearby. They checked every corridor to hope that he was not there as Claire spoke. "We are safe for now." Claire then looked around as the girls helped her locate anything that could let them contact the leaders or the Red Dragon. "Is there anything that you girls found?" "No, nothing, we must keep looking, hopefully there is a contact device." Quinella spoke feigning worry as Mio spoke with worry. "You're kidding." Mio spoke as everyone looked at her and responded. "Malak will locate us before we even realize what is happening." "We don't have a choice, Mio, this is the only plan we have." Claire spoke with worry as Mio reluctantly agreed. They had no choice, this was their last resort. Unbeknownst to them, Issei, Gondal and Charlotte were watching them as Issei had a blue gauntlet on his hand which was glowing. This was Innovate Clear and he had absolute control of the castle, which was a dimension he had created no sooner than they entered. This included his allies as well since he did not need to shapeshift into Malak anymore. "This will be much easier than I thought. We outnumber them by 5 to 4, Issei spoke seriously as he then continued. "We all take one each, me and Gondal will take on Claire, she seems to be the strongest amongst the 4. "As you wish." Gondal spoke as Charlotte asked. "But I may have to show some injuries, so should I?" Charlotte's words made Issei stop her as he spoke. "Don't even think about hurting yourself, Charlie. Charlotte blushed at this, as Issei realized this, and released her, and spoke, I can make them see the false injuries, although this may include Miyuki and Quinella. I understand, I can take it from here. Charlotte spoke with an assuring smile, as some injuries appeared on her face and legs, due to innovate clear. Charlotte then leaves, seeing her condition, Quinella and Miyuki were worried, as they assumed that Charlotte must have hurt herself to prove that she was attacked, they rushed to her, but she then spoke silently. Issei stopped me, these are fake. Quinella and Miyuki felt relieved, as Charlotte exclaimed feigning anger. I told you guys to leave and contact the others, then why are you here? Quinella spoke with slight worry. We had no choice, we had to return back, since we can only contact the Red Dragon from here. Charlotte sighed, as she looked around, with Claire speaking. I will be looking for a way to connect to Haidu, until then, you guys stick together, and don't move. Claire spoke as she left, with Miyuki speaking. I will join too. Both the girls left, leaving Charlotte alone with Quinella, Mio, Hiroyuka and Stella. So what now? Stella spoke, as she and the other girls waited for a moment. Charlotte had fallen asleep due to her injuries, the other girls seemed to be sad by what was happening, there was truly no hope. A few minutes later, Charlotte pretended to be half asleep, as she woke up, she then spoke. There is something I need to tell you girls. Charlotte looked at the others, as she continued, Malak is not hurt, he is still in the castle. The girls were shocked, except Quinella who was feigning the emotion, as Stella spoke. You're kidding, right? Charlotte shook her head and responded seriously. No, he is here. Judging by the tone of Charlotte's voice, Malak seemed to be nearby, as Mio asked, where? Charlotte then spoke with a tone of mockery. Why don't you look behind you? The girls turned around behind to see Malak sitting on one of the couches in the castle. When did you reach here? Mio spoke with slight fear in her voice, as Hiroyuka asked, how could we not sense you? You didn't, and well, what was I expecting from you? Malak spoke as he got up and started to walk closer to the girls as they backed away, but when they did, a purple magic blast and some flies struck them from behind. The three girls turned around to see their attackers both having smiles on their faces, they were none other than Quinella Asmodeus and Charlotte Beelzebub. Issei, who was in the guise of Malak, then used Innovate Clear to make sure no one escapes from his dimension. Mio looked at the two girls, as she knew that the three girls came together, they were the new girls, since originally the party was only meant for her sister, Claire and Hiroyuka, no one else. That only meant one thing, Miyuki was also one of the complicit. No way that means. Stella asked her sister, in worry, sister, what's wrong? Miyuki is also one of them. Mio spoke with fear, as Malak, Quinella and Charlotte were surprised by her deducing skills she had, as Malak spoke while clapping. Bravo. You really are something. While Stella and Hiroyuka were angry by this, Mio was still thinking as she muttered. All three of them came with Haidu, even Charlotte and Quinella, and if all three are traitors, then that means. Mio looked at Malak analyzing him, she wondered what his real intentions were, as she asked, does Haidu know about you three betraying the factions? Mio looked at Quinella and Charlotte with a glare, as Charlotte spoke. Bravo. You really are a fortune teller. Charlotte spoke with a mocking tone, as she continued, but a failed fortune teller. Tell me the truth, damn it. Mio exclaimed, she was furious at what was happening. Gee, relax, don't get your hopes up, no he doesn't know. Mio wanted to sigh in relief, but a nagging feeling told her that something was wrong, horribly wrong. This was not Malak's normal strategy, he always attacked full frontal when he would deal with the factions. Him infiltrating and attacking them like this was not something he used to do. A lot of people don't know, but Mio was very deductive in nature, which was overlooked by her arrogant nature. Her deduction skills were pretty good, however, she failed to notice a few flaws. She remembered the attacks Malak did against Grigori, Kyoto, Olympus and Heaven. But none of them were sneak attacks, unless you consider one when he attacked Heaven again, but even then, they did eventually come to know about the attack. This was different, as they knew that Malak was not like that, he wouldn't attack unless he had to show his prowess, in a way, where a lot were watching, nobody knows Malak is here, and nobody will. Mio's thoughts were snapped when Hiroyuka opened her mouth. So you abandoned your own forefathers and attacked your own kind, Hiroyuka exclaimed with anger in her voice, as Charlotte responded. I was once a fool that would have fallen for the lies of the factions, but don't worry, you will soon betray your own people, and because of Malak we saw the truth. Quinella spoke, as Hiroyuka angrily retorted. Just because of a bloody terrorist, I will never turn my back on my kind. You hear me? Stella agreed, as she glared at the two traitors as Malak looked at the two girls. Mio was still in thought, her gut was telling her that the one in front of her was not Malak. But if that was the case, then who was it in front of them? You have no choice, my dear. Your devotion to me will be eternal, now ladies if you may. Both Charlotte and Quinella nodded, they started to use their magic, however, a voice called them out. Wait. They stopped for a moment, as Mio then asked, who are you? I don't understand, I am Malak, the one who is attacking you right now. Malak responded confused as Mio shook her head and responded, "No, I have a feeling that you are not Malak." Mio then asked with a serious tone, "Who exactly are you?" Issei was surprised by this, as Drake responded to him mentally, she was deductive, but this level of deduction, this is new, she would be useful to us in planning strategies. Charlotte and Quinella looked worried, did they come to know who really Malak was? However, despite this, it would make Issei's job more easier, as Stella asked, "Sister, what do you mean? The one in front of you is Malak." Mio shook her head and spoke seriously. "He is not, tell me, who are you?" Malak shook his head as he spoke, "Does it really matter? It won't change the fact that you girls will soon join me." Malak spoke with a sinister grin, as with Innovate Clear, holy chains started to appear as they were being bound to the ground. Mio, Stella and Ryuka were slammed to the ground, they grit their teeth in pain. "And no matter what you do, we will never betray our kind." Mio exclaimed in anger as the three girls struggled to break from the chains. As Alpheka Tyrant was summoned, he brought out a few nails as he spoke. "You know, I found something interesting about your father, Mio, Stella." Malak moved towards her as they both nervously turned their heads away. "Well, it turns out the two of you began as Gremory." "Don't you dare, Malak," Stella exclaimed with tears in her eyes. Issei made sure to put a barrier to prevent Claire from hearing anything as she continued, "You don't know what we have gone through. I figured as much, you hate the Gremories, primarily because of Zeodicus Gremory, didn't you, or more accurately, your father hates the Gremory clan, doesn't he?" You. Mio screams, but then she looks away, she vividly remembers her father being a former Gremory member and the humiliation she and her sister went through was too much. She also started to cry, while Ryuka, Charlotte and Quinella wondered why she was like that. "I love a good story." Malak spoke with a mocking tone as he continues, "My information states that Wilbert Nares was once called Wilbert Gremory, the older brother of Zeodicus Gremory." Malak spoke with a mocking tone, causing Ryuka, Charlotte and Quinella to widen their eyes as Mio and Stella start to tear up, "But from what I heard, something happened that caused him to be exiled and disowned. He was admonished, humiliated and even beaten up because of what the Lord Gremory, as well as Lady Chisis Gremory did to him, right?" Everyone was silent, leaving a sniffling Mio and Stella. They remembered the grief their father went through as Malak continued, "But I must give him props to that devil. He built his own clan from ground up and even made a name in the Devil Council, being their leader." Malak's tone had some admiration in it as he then changed to his mocking tone. "Despite this, he became no better than those fools in the council. A foolish man became the same as those fools in the council. It almost felt like he never learned. What an idiot." "Don't you dare," Mio screamed as her hair covered her face. Stella was glaring furiously at Malak as they hated him admonishing her father. Mio then shouted, "Don't you dare speak about my father when you know nothing about him." Mio continued in the same tone while crying as she glared furiously at him, "People have hated and looked down upon my father because of them. You don't know the grief he faced, you don't know the suffering he has faced." Mio took a deep breath as she continued, "You are just a cold-blooded murderer, you are just a being of destruction, a megalomaniac. You know nothing of suffering and you never will," Mio shouted. Malak narrowed his eyes as he gave a cold glare, his glare was like they were looking at a predator and they were the prey. Before she could react, Issei grabbed Mio by her kimono and yelled, "You think you know suffering, you don't know what it feels like to be looked down upon every time just because you are an average being. I was hated just because I never had a power that would be well known." Malak's outburst caused Mio to nearly pass out, she was terrified of him. Stella and Ryuka were frozen by fear, Mio's eyes were filled by fear as he yelled, "Your father sure suffered, but he never learned from that. He was a fool that never learned from his suffering and changed, he became the same rotten being as the rest of the Devil Council." Malak calmed after a while and he spoke, "Even you too were influenced by your father. That is why you will ruin your father. With your very own hands, all three of you will turn against your own family. And you will serve the droid faction with full loyalty and admiration." Malak had a sinister smile as the girls widened their eyes. Mio then begged, "And no, please, and my father and sister is all I have to this privilege, please I beg you." Ryuka also joined in the pleading with Stella, however, Malak removed 9 holy nails and threw 3 each on the girls. "Do not resist, you will soon realize that the supernatural factions are your enemies, just like my allies have." Ryuka then spoke as her eyes started to fall droopy, "And no what did we?" Their vision started to blur as they fell unconscious. Ryuka was not even able to complete her words, the illusion fell off and Issei took a deep breath as he tried to not remember his past. He looked down, remembering what made him into who he is. "Are you okay?" Issei jolted up as this was revealed to be Quinella and Charlotte, both of whom had worried looks on their face. Issei nods as the girls came closer. "Just remembering my past, Wilbert's suffering is nothing compared to mine, just because she suffered, or her father suffered, they haven't learnt. Wilbert has a little of my respect, but he is no better than any of those prideful and arrogant devils." Issei shook his head as Quinella and Charlotte looked at their 3 targets as Charlotte spoke. So what should we do with them? Issei looked at them and spoke, by the time they wake up, I have already put my memories into their bodies, that was why I used a 3rd nail for that, they will be loyal sleeper agents once this should get over, although I wonder, where is Claire? Right here. Miyuki's voice boomed as she and Gondal showed up, with Claire being carried by Gondal on her shoulder. She then drops the unconscious Claire on the ground. So what is the plan? Gondal asked Issei, as he looked at her and spoke, let us begin her final act. Issei spoke, as all the girls nodded, Miyuki, Issei and Gondal went into hiding, but not before creating holy chains using the Rock of Jerusalem, binding her completely. She soon woke up, as she looked around, Ha Claire exclaimed, as she saw Quinella and Charlotte looking after the now unconscious Mio, Stella and Ryuka. She was unable to notice the chains, due to her fear for what she saw in front of her. The chains had left her wide open. I would suggest you to not scream, since Malak is nearby, Claire nods, as she speaks. I know, Miyuki is one of them. This caused Charlotte and Quinella to feign surprise, as Quinella spoke. What? Quinella exclaimed in surprise, as Charlotte responded. We refuse to believe you, you have no proof. Charlotte responded, as Claire tried to make them believe, but her hands were tied to chains. Looking around, she tried to move them, but was unable to, the chains were disabling her magical power, the chains did not penetrate her skin, otherwise it would have caused pain. But the Claire exclaimed in surprise, why are my powers not working? Claire struggled to break free, not noticing the smiles on Charlotte and Quinella. I will explain that a voice from the shadows garners the attention of the 3 girls as it was revealed to be Issei, along with Miyuki and Gondal, all of whom had a look of coldness on their faces. Claire's eyes widened when she saw Issei, she was shocked to see Miyuki and Gondal approach behind him as she exclaimed to him. Hi, do listen, they are not your allies. They are your enemies. Claire tried to reason as he spoke. Enemies, how so? Issei pretended to be naive as Claire looked at him in horror as she spoke. They are the ones that put me in this prison, Gondal and Miyuki are traitors to the factions. Haidu, please listen. Claire was surprised when Issei was unaffected as he spoke. Claire Phoenix, I am not affiliated with any faction, so how are they my enemies? Claire widens her eyes, however, she soon realizes this, she understands that Issei was never part of any factions. She looked away as Issei started laughing maniacally. Why are you laughing? Claire asked confused as Issei looked at her and spoke. Oh, Claire didn't you realize the obvious? I brought the girls, remember? Claire widened her eyes in disbelief. Issei telling her this meant that he was aware of the girls' betrayal. That means you knew about them being part of the droid faction, Claire exclaimed in disbelief. Issei nodded, after which Claire got furious at Haidu Issei's betrayal as she exclaimed, you bastard, how many have the droid faction killed? I told you once and tell you again, not my monkeys, not my circus, and honestly, I hardly care if your family dies by their hands, after all, they are my enemies. Issei spoke as Claire widened her eyes, she then asked, why are they your enemies? Issei shook his head and responded. Is it not obvious? Phoenix Issei spoke the word Phoenix with spite as he glared furiously at Claire, even though she was not involved in his suffering, she was still part of the Phoenix. Claire looked down in regret, she would have helped him as she knew of Dai very well, she did not have fallen for Dai immediately, unlike Ravel, she would know him and then seen what kind of a person she was, like Gondal, she would not have believed the lies of Dai Haidu. And besides, you don't even know who the real enemy is, don't you Claire? Claire looked surprised as she asked, who is our enemy? Issei chuckled as he looked at her dead in the eye and spoke. You are seeing him right in front of your eyes. Claire widened her eyes as she muttered in disbelief, no. Out of all the people to be a villain, Issei being one of them terrified the factions the most. His threats of joining the droid faction brought fear into the hearts of many, and now, that threat is going to be a reality. And the best part is that the factions don't even know that the one they expect their help from is one of their enemies. Issei spoke with a mocking tone. Claire started to tear up, sniffling, their true savior was now their worst enemy. You really are a monster. Claire exclaimed in anger, not caring or knowing that Quinella and Charlotte had joined him, they and Miyuki along with Gondal wanted to punish Claire, however Issei stopped them and spoke with a grin. You are right, I am a monster. Well, at least you didn't call me a traitor. Issei chuckled as he looked directly in Claire's eyes, who shivered. She was still angry, but was worried about what would happen next. But then again, you all made this monster, think about it Claire, I became a monster, not because of what you did, but because of your family's actions. Your family and the rest of the supernatural created me, remember this Claire Phoenix. Issei declared as he looked at the girls. Claire was silent, Issei was not wrong in any way, she took it upon herself to fix the problem her clan had created, she watched as Issei continued. Think about it, you may be innocent, but both of your siblings are complicit in their actions, and let's not forget what Riser Phoenix did to me. Issei shook his head and spoke, "You really expect me to forget all of that? I told you before, I see no worth in saving a pathetic clan like yours, or protecting the clan like before, so why the hell should I show them mercy? Please, I will do anything." Claire pleaded to Issei. She knew that even with her power she stood no chance against him, as Issei laughed. "Oh Claire, don't you remember that you figuratively gave yourself to me?" Issei had a mocking smile, as Claire widened her eyes, and asked, "Why you Kainu?" Claire's tone was horrified, as Issei smiled in response, "I have eyes and ears everywhere, you should have been more careful in keeping your secret." Claire was in despair, she and the rest of the Phoenix clan were being watched, that meant that Issei, even though not being part of any faction, had tabs on everyone, and knew who he could target. "And no P please spare my family, I beg." "Why you?" Claire begged Issei, as she spoke, "P please don't do this." Issei shook his head, he put his hand up, and Alpheka Tyrant was summoned, he brought out a few nails from it. Claire's instincts were telling her to flee, the weapon he wielded, as he spoke. "Don't worry Claire, I won't touch your family." Claire started to smile, as she hoped that her pleas would reach him, only to see him grinning maniacally. "You will kill them yourself, with your very two hands, your actions will bring in the downfall of the Phoenix clan, Claire Phoenix." Issei's evil grin was menacing, it almost felt like a cat was almost about to wipe out a prey, and they were taking their time to make the prey believe that they are safe, only for them to strike at a later time. When their guard is down. "And no P please why do you want to torment me?" Like this Issei shrugged, his experiences with the factions made him apathetic and cold to those that were involved with making his life a living hell, even those close to his tormentors. "I am altering the deal, pray I don't alter it any further." Issei spoke coldly, as he started to aim the nails at her neck and chest area, as he continued, "Soon, you will see that I am a good person, and I am not your enemy." "No," Claire screamed, the thought of her killing her brothers, sister and her parents, it terrified her, she was away from them for so long, and now, she may have to kill them. The memories she had with her family were all being erased and rewritten, and replaced by the ones Issei had designed, even her own personality was being rewritten, there was only one thing that she thought before closing her eyes, as a tear fell from it. I am so sorry," Claire muttered, as her vision started to blur, and the next thing that happened was that she passed out. Issei had secretly used a third nail to insert memories that belonged to him to all four girls. After a while, Issei commanded everyone to get up, as they all got up, the four girls he had targeted had woken up, Issei removed the chains off Claire, and she was able to move properly. The light soon returned, and a growing disdain for the factions started to grow in the four girls. Issei had managed to completely perfect Alpheka Tyrant, this allowed him to even erase the personality of his victim, and replace it with a personality he so wants to do so. However, he planned this for a certain someone that made his life problematic for a very long time. Why were we his enemies? Mio thought she now had a lingering disdain for the factions, she felt like she wanted to wipe them all out, especially the devils, same went for Stella and Ryuka. Their inner selves now were wondering what Issei would ask them to do. "I don't want to be close to these people," Claire thought coldly as she looked at Issei with admiration. She now knew how much he suffered at the hands of the Phoenix family, as she became disgusted by them. Her inner self agreed to her outer self, as she wanted to teach them a lesson, she planned to at the very least convince Issei to spare them, and in return, she would diligently serve him and the droid faction. "Now I want you all to go back and head outside, act as if nothing ever happened, alright?" The girls nodded, as they left out, he then looked at his two girlfriends, as he responded, "The final act for this party will soon begin, I will alert Malak to begin his speech, tonight is the night Kuo Academy will fall." Issei spoke with a sinister grin, earning nods from the girls. They both kiss Issei's cheeks and walk with the rest of the girls, leaving a pouting Gondal who returns back to her normal self. "Shall we return back?" Issei spoke with a smile, to which the Valkyrie nodded, as they both headed to the roof. Issei reactivates Eon Baylor and reverts time back to normal, he then starts to play his part. Scene change. Roswis was watching them, unbeknownst to her that time had been stopped and resumed, she looked as Issei started to bite Gondal's nape, as she moaned in pleasure, as she exclaimed, "El Lord Issei please T that's my sensitive spot." Issei kept sucking on it, he saw the grandmother of Roswis, no longer having a dignified expression, like she usually did, she had a flustered look, as she was breathing hot air to Issei, her expression seemed to be panting, she was exhausted, her breath was intoxicating even towards Issei. Had it not been for Drake suppressing his dragon instincts, he would have done it with the Valkyrie right then and there. He mentally thanked his best friend for not doing something he would regret. Inner Gondal was also blushing, as she exclaimed to her outer self and Issei to stop this, she was embarrassed by what she was witnessing. "Gee grandmother." Roswis muttered in disbelief, she had never seen her like this, especially her expression. To Roswis, her grandmother was strict and dignified, this seemed to be a completely different person. AW, is that all the great Gondal has gotten? Issei spoke in a seductive voice, as Gondal was unable to move, as Issei was ready to make out with her, only for Issei to stop. He narrowed his eyes, as Gondal asked, "Ice, what is the matter?" Gondal was confused as Issei looked at the direction. It only took a moment to sense her. She also narrowed her eyes, even she was angry, as Issei exclaimed, "Roswis, come out!" Issei glared at the scene, and the next thing Roswis came out she had a flustered look, as Gondal spoke. "Ross, why are you against my relationship?" Gondal glared at Roswis, who shivered from the glare, as she spoke. "But grandmother, look at him, this is just wrong." Roswis tried to defend herself, as Issei responded, "If you think dating your grandmother is wrong, then you are wrong. You are under the delusion of thinking you can be with me, despite your relationship with Dai." Roswis was silent. She glared at Issei, as he narrowed his eyes. "Here, look, see how happy your grandmother is with me." Issei turned to Gondal and kissed her on her lips, as he looked at Roswis, who had her mouth agape. She had a blush on her face, but her smile seemed to be genuine for him. Inner Gondal also blushed. This was the only time that Issei actually was close to her outer self, and that was also an act. He was professional and charismatic, something that caught the attention of the Valkyrie. She did not want to tell him, since she was already had a child and a grandchild. She felt attracted to him, but she was not sure how he would react to her proposal. "I am not going to lie, if I had a choice between you Roswis and your grandmother, I will definitely go for the latter." Issei spoke, causing Roswis to look down sadly. She drags herself out of there, as Gondal speaks. "You are so mean." Gondal spoke with feigned sadness, while inner Gondal sighed seeing this. She knew that her granddaughter was too affected by her guilt. She was guilty of her actions in the past, but she knew that she lost someone that would care for her, at all times. She should know, if she thinks I am going to care or fall for her, it will never happen. Issei spoke coldly, as Gondal recovers herself. They then have a moment together, as they make out for a while. This was to make sure that no one suspects what is happening. Meanwhile, inner Gondal was considering joining Issei, since she was losing faith in Odin. She had doubts on whether she was a pawn, or someone that Odin cared for. She noticed that times like these often show a person's true character. All she needed was a catalyst to affirm her decision. They spent 30 minutes watching the night sky. As they headed down, 30 minutes had passed, with the girls soon coming from the rooms. The devils had looked at them with an analytical look, as they had to make sure that the devil girls did not make them in front of the other faction leaders. "Very well then, one by one all of you will be announcing your names and your dreams when your name is called." Wilbert announced to the group as he continued, "The first to go shall be Uryuka Glaciolabolas." Uryuka stepped forward, as she looked at the leaders. The once leader looked at the rest with a smile, but she was internally disgusted at them. "Stop pretending, cause I know you hate Lord Issei." Uryuka looked at Mio and Stella, who were also looking serious, but they seemed to be disgusted with their father. Clara also now had similar thoughts, as she glared furiously at Ravel, who did not seem to notice. She now knew what Issei had suffered and will not hesitate to kill her if need be. "Now then, I hope you have a dream, heir of Glaciolabolas." Wilbert spoke with a neutral look as Uryuka spoke nervously. I wish to serve my clan and make sure my clan is well recognized everywhere." Uryuka's words earned nods from everyone, as Mio and the other girls also said something similar. "I wish to honor my father and lead the Nerus clan." Mio spoke with determination, earning a smile from Wilbert. I will do the same and support my sister." Stella spoke seriously, as Wilbert seemed to be proud of this. "My goal is to save and protect the Phoenix family and restore it to its former glory," Claire declared seriously as Quinella was the next to speak. "My goal is to reclaim my clan's rightful place, one day." Quinella spoke pointing to Falbium, as Surziches and Ajuka narrowed their eyes. There would be a day when they would step down from their position as Satans. They sighed knowing that they are arrogant, just like their predecessors. "I wish to fix the damaged reputation Shalba Beelzebub destroyed due to his desire to rule. He even damaged the true hero once and I desire to fix the clan's reputation." Just like Phoenix, Charlotte spoke with slight sadness, as Issei narrowed his eyes, remembering how he died by Shalba's hands. Even the others were surprised by what she said, as Surziches asked, "Shalba's actions have left an irreparable stain on the devils. How will you fix them?" Charlotte spoke, "I have no idea, but I will restore my clan to its full glory. I may be a half-devil, but I will do it, no matter what it takes." Surziches nods, as Issei smiles in happiness. She has already proven herself as to be nothing like Shalba. Her heart was not evil like his. "And I wish for equality between both men and women." Miyuki spoke, however minus probably Charlotte and Quinella. None of them spoke their real dreams. The elders started chuckling. Miyuki's dream is foolish, as the Devil Society did not see women as their own beings. They still lived in the past and believed in men's superiority. This was true for many of their actions throughout their time, from influencing forced marriages, even harems. And even looking down on them, thinking that their only job is to breed children for their future. This was why many of the forced engagements existed for the time being. Miyuki clenched her fist in anger. These old men only annoyed her even more, them laughing at her reminded of her sister's actions towards her in the past. The only one who wasn't laughing was Wilbert, who narrowly gazed onto Miyuki as he asked, "Pray tell, how would you achieve this, Miyuki Citri? The world as you know it revolves around pureblood supremacy, sooner or later you will be engaged to someone." Miyuki was left speechless, she knew that she was not strong enough to protect herself, at least not yet. The elders continued to laugh, with some of the gods, primarily the Hindu faction, glaring at these old men. Issei and Gondal heard everything, they were not going to take lightly when an ally of theirs was insulted. He looked at the watch. 0:01 and 59 seconds. Only 2 minutes remained for the final act. He had already asked Malak to get ready for his grand speech, which will happen soon. Both stepped down as they saw Charlotte and Quinella equally angry at the elders. Issei soon stood in front of Miyuki, surprising her as he spoke. "I will help her in achieving her dream." The elders scowled seeing him here as they spat towards Miyuki. "You see what you have done, whose attention you have gathered?" Issei interrupted the elder, who spoke with a cold glare. "I came here on my own accord, I can speak for myself, and I think you know she is under my wing, thanks to the Citri clan. If you question that, I won't hesitate to put you old hag 6 feet under." "Why yes, Lord Issei." The elder spoke fearfully as Miyuki nodded with a smile. She was happy that Issei was looking out for those he cared about. Surziches and Ajuka looked at him with controlled anger. He did whatever he wanted to do, and nobody even dared to stop or control him. He looked at the timer. "The countdown will begin soon," Issei thought as suddenly, the lights went off, a screen then showed up with a timer, with a countdown that began. The face then showed up, many looked in horror, as it was none other than Malak himself that had appeared. "Good evening, supernatural factions." Malak's words caused many to start panicking and fearing for what might have happened. The man in front of them terrified them and neutralized them on many occasions. The man who knows about their weakness and exploited them on so many occasions. Quite the party you got there, am I right? Biblical, Nordic, Greek, Hindu, although I can't say the same for Shinto or the Yokai faction. Malak's tone was mocking, as many glared at him with anger, especially Surziches, Ajuka, and even Falbium, who was now awake. They knew that Yusaka was taken by them, and ever since that day, her whereabouts were unknown. As Malak spoke, "Oh, don't be like that, you have brought this on yourselves." Malak grinned as Ingvild muttered to Valerie, "So this is the final act Lord Issei had planned." Valerie nods as she continued, "Indeed, but for what reason did they need the Kuo Academy for?" Ingvild also wondered as she watched Malak speak. In her time, she was still in the process of being tolerated by Issei, and same went for Valerie. "You see, it is nice to see people spending time with their family, but you can't have everything in life." Malak spoke sadly as he continued, "You know I hate the people, like you leaders, you fail to see what is in front of you, and you refuse a simple demand." Malak spoke with a mocking tone, leaving everyone confused. Shiva was trying his best to find what his real intentions were. "You are good people, or at least some of you are, but as long as you are allowed, protecting your beloved peace will only cause more war." Malak spoke in a cold tone, some gritted their teeth, only to see Malak walk closer to the front desk. "Now you all must be wondering, why do I hate you guys so much? Why do I hate the faction leaders so much?" Malak spoke as he sat on the desk, he closed his eyes as he spoke. "I don't hate them, I just pity you fools. I realized it was not worth saving people like you." The screen changed as some started to tear up upon seeing this, others were confused as to what happened. They saw the hollow expression of the students as they were unable to move. The teachers were all taped, struggling to break free. They watched the students being all lifeless, even those that were in prison were present. But that's not all students that had graduated were also present. This horrified many. Malak then spoke as the screen changed to him. "You have manipulated my race, the human race, turned them into selfish, repulsive beings. And you all are responsible for this." "Yes, I am looking at you." Ria's Gremory, and even Sona Citri had a hand in it. Ria's covered her mouth in horror, some looked at her, and they saw her tearing up at this. "They have enslaved us, they made us believe that we needed them, otherwise we would be lost. But in reality, they need us, and I am the only one that does something about this." Malak declared angrily as he glared at the angels and devils primarily. Slowly, Malak removed something from his pocket. He took out a switch. Upon closer inspection it was a detonator. The leaders widened their eyes in shock and horror. Some of the girls were crying due to the people whom they saw as friends and classmates. They did not want to see, but were forced to see this scene. "I hate doing this, especially to my own kind, but if you want to blame someone, blame Dai Haidu, like you usually do." Malak spoke with a shrug, as many had a disgusted look remembering the former pillar of the factions. Malak then started to float in the air, using the unknown dictator that Issei had given him. He had full control of the systems. As he started to play music, "But before the big event, let's put on some music." "Now wait, here comes the strings." Malak spoke, and moments later, "Here comes the metal." And at the right time, Malak speaks as he looks onto everyone. "And now here comes the big boom." Malak clicked the detonator when all of a sudden, explosions took place. Slowly everyone saw the corridors of Kuo Academy, the classrooms with students who believed Dai Haidu were killed, they were disintegrated, and those unlucky were burnt alive. The only ones that could feel the pain were the teachers, and they screamed in pain. Even students that were in university were also not spared. Heartbreaking screams of people were heard, windows were breaking, everything was covered with explosions, including the corridors. The leaders felt defeat, and they couldn't handle it, they did not understand the feeling, except for some. Kuo Academy had fallen, collapsed, the student council building was completely destroyed, it had turned into rubble. But there was an image that made the leaders clench their teeth in rage, it was Dai Haidu's face. The leaders were silent, processing what had just happened, but what hurt them the most, or rather Surzich's Lucifer, was the fact that the place where the Kuo Treaty took place was now destroyed. This can't be happening, Surzich's screamed as he smashed the table in anger. The table did not break, fortunately. Surzich's saw as Malak spoke his final words. Now I will stop the song, since my job here is done, until next time, leaders. Malak spoke with a mocking tone, as he bowed, the screen went black and everyone was silent. Riaz was weeping, while Asia passed out due to what she was seeing. My clone has some good taste in music, Issei thought. Internally he was happy seeing the fall of Kuo Academy, with Valerie looking at his smile, and understood what his intentions were, as she spoke silently. So that's what his intentions were. Ingvald looked at her and asked, was it not revenge? Valerie shook her head and muttered, not at all, it was different. You see, Kuo Academy is not only his most hated place, but also it acts as a symbol, and with that symbol falling, the alliance will crumble, Valerie explained, earning a nod as she looked with a neutral manner. Aren't you sad? They were your friends. Ingvald shook her head and responded, not anymore, they hurt Lord Issei, so I see no reason to be sad. Hell, I won't forgive any of them, and from what I heard, some even beat him to near death, and nobody helped him due to the lies. He even had to drag himself to the police station and the hospital. Valerie was agape, now even she felt no sympathy for them. She watched as the faction leaders watched in horror, realizing that many innocent lives were killed. I really need to talk to Issei about this though. How many more tormented him? They also need to face justice for their actions. Ingvald thought as she looked at Issei. Valerie also was having similar thoughts. Gabriel looked at Issei. She hardly felt sad for the ones that had hurt Lord Issei. Just like some others in the party, the final act was complete. Issei had taken another architect of his pain down, for good. I really need to talk to Lord Issei alone. Gabriel thought she also was having second thoughts on trusting Michael and some other seraphs, as doubt was starting to fill inside of her. Scene change. Time skip brought to you by Chibi. Issei enjoying the fireworks of Kuo Academy's destruction. 1.5 hours later, Party Hall, Grand Party, Lucifer Territory, Underworld, 1:30 p.m. Issei was sitting on the chair with a bored look, behind him were Miyuki, Gondal, Quinella and Charlotte. The girls that had recently joined were asked to go back home. He was surrounded by all the faction leaders. Even Leisha and Sekfera were behind him. They also wondered why they had called Issei explicitly when he made it clear when he has no interest in dealing with them. So will you tell us how to combat him? Ajuka spoke coldly as Issei responded with a snarl. Not my monkeys, not my circus. Issei responded, earning glares from the leaders, especially Surzich's, Ajuka and Zeus. If anything, they hated him at this point. He was supposed to be the pillar of factions. But their hubris prevented them from seeing the truth until it was too late. Shiva sighed as he asked in a calm tone, what will it take for you to help us? I don't know, you had to release Nyx, that's all, but now, your pride and hubris showed that you didn't want to release her. Issei spoke mockingly, and then with a shrug, on a serious note, though we wouldn't be in this situation had you accepted my deal before and not try to control me with your own faction girls and putting seals on her, stripping her away of what made her who she is. Issei spoke coldly and seriously, Zeus, Ajuka, if anyone is responsible for this, it is the two of you. Both of them grit their teeth in fury as they glare at Issei. Their blood was boiling, remembering what had happened a few weeks before when Issei released Nyx. He put them through severe trauma of what he is capable of and released their shivering bodies. Shiva couldn't deny Issei's words. Indra was thinking of goading and taunting him into helping him, but he decided not to. This was their screw-up and they needed to stand down. I see, I guess you are just a chicken, like your brother. Ajuka spoke, trying to goad him, as Indra only thought of one thing. More on. Ajuka looked at Issei, wondering what his response would be, only to shrug as he responded. Was expecting more from the supposed smartest devil. Issei looked at Ajuka and responded, your insults are even worse than I was expecting. Ajuka gritted his teeth in rage. You should do as we say. Ajuka spoke, as Issei narrowed his eyes. His words proved what Malak spoke about the leaders. You see, Malak is right about you. You are no different to the old Satan faction, and you are afraid that humanity will see your true face, aren't you? That you are an idiot with the delusions with the grandeur. Issei spoke with a mocking tone, annoying Indra. You don't understand this, humanity must not know about us, and Issei interrupted him and responded, oh they will. The leaders were shocked at this. The path you are going, you will do it yourself, and even if you don't, Malak will do the honors. Issei spoke with a mocking tone, he hardly cared about the supernatural factions. Before me, all I see is an arrogant brat. Issei disappeared and had a light blade aimed at his throat. Leisha gasped at this, as she had her hands on her mouth. Sure, she hated her uncle, but she did not want to die. Make one move, and he dies. The leaders reluctantly stood down, as Ajuka tried to remove the blade, however he gets shocked by holy lightning, surprising Azazel and Shemhazai, making him grit his teeth in pain. Don't move, you know what to move, cause you don't listen to me either way. Ajuka clenched his fist in anger, which surprised Issei, he was much more durable than before. So you don't plan to help us, are you doing this for revenge? Sayer gasped with a glare and in a serious tone, as Issei looks down upon the disgraceful Baal and responds. No, I am not doing this for revenge, Issei spoke, while continuing, they made their choice that they never desired my help and now force me to help him. Issei spoke as Ajuka shouts. Then you should give the book to us, let it be used for something useful. Ajuka declared, he has had enough of Issei, someone as selfish as you doesn't deserve it. The leaders were shocked by Ajuka's actions, as they feared that he would be on Issei's hit list. Many of them believed Ajuka was not wrong, but kept silent knowing what Issei was capable of. Leisha was horrified seeing her uncle act like this. The Issei she saw was different, never did he do anything bad to her. She was starting to lose any respect she had for her uncle. Sekiruuyetei was silent, she shook her head in disappointment, looking at the man in front of her. The girls were getting angry, especially Quinella and Charlotte. It was only after Gondal stopped them from doing something reckless, she convinced them that Issei has got this. By what right do you demand me my book? Issei screamed in fury, his tone was draconic, as Ajuka took a step back due to fear. As Issei continued, you think that you own me, just because I wield a sacred gear. It looks like you haven't learned your lesson to not provoke or control a dragon. It seems like I should make your torture even more severe. Issei was ready to decapitate him, his eyes were green with fury, and his pupils became reptilian. Sayer backed away instinctively due to fear. Gondal and Leisha were now afraid, both the girls did not hesitate to stop Issei. As for Gondal, now was not the time to kill him, while Leisha did not want to see her uncle tortured. The two girls hugged him from the behind, as he felt something soft stopping him. It was Leisha and Gondal, realizing that now was not the time, he deactivated the light blade. As he was ready to leave, Gondal left along with him. Gondal, where are you going? Gondal looked at Auden, who was the one who asked her this, she then responded. I am going with Lord Issei, someone needs to calm him down. Gondal spoke, as Auden narrowed his eyes, he then spoke. I see, do you even realize that he just nearly killed Satan Beelzebub? Gondal glared at Auden in response. He disgusts me, he had the audacity to force Lord Issei to work for him, even after explicitly warning him not to do so. Gondal narrowed her eyes and started to walk away, and you didn't even try to stop him. You should have stopped this fight from escalating, and I say this to all the leaders present, you all should be ashamed. Shiva and Indra looked down in shame due to what Gondal spoke, while Shemhazai, Azazel and a select few were furious, including Auden, while some remained neutral. Ha. 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 Auden seemed to laugh at this, catching everyone off guard including Issei, as he glared onto Roswis's grandmother. It seems like your love with the red dragon has blinded you. Auden then declared seriously, henceforth, you are banned from Asgard and will only return when I ask you to. Auden's words horrified everyone, especially Inner Gondal, who broke down into tears. She served Auden diligently, even refusing to join Issei after all this while. Issei furiously glared at the All-Father, even Quinella and Charlotte along with Miyuki were equally angry. Leisha and Sekiruuyetei glared at Auden, as Gondal spoke. In that case, consider this my resignation. Gondal walked away, but not before flipping the bird onto the Norse god making him angry. Issei chuckled at Gondal's actions as he then turned his attention to Auden, and spoke with a glare. You should be happy that Gondal stopped me, otherwise Ajuka would have been dead. You really are an idiot, Auden. Issei spoke, making the Norse god nearly destroy the table in fury. He gritted his teeth so much, it was starting to bleed due to the pressure. You really are a pathetic hypocrite, Auden. Issei walked away, however Ajuka was not having any of it. Blinded by fury, he unleashed a blast towards Issei. Issei sensed it moments later, however the blast, due to being aimed at Issei, missed and instead hit Leisha Astareth. Leisha was struck by the blast, as she was sent flying. She has scars on her face, with everyone being horrified by what they saw. Her body went bouncing down, as she was twitching her pain, her eyes were partially open. Leisha, a heartbreaking scream was made by Sekiruuyetei who rushed to Leisha. She managed to get up, as her eyes were partially opened as she spoke weakly. Sekiruuyetei fell down to a kneeling position, as she supported her head onto her lap. Leisha, are you okay? Issei exclaimed, as Leisha nodded, she grunted in pain. Issei and the others rushed to Leisha, who exclaimed in pain. Gi. Issei clenched his fist, while the girls were equally angry. Sekiruuyetei was the angriest that Ajuka attacked Leisha. Issei got up and spoke with an emotionless tone. Sekiruuyetei, take Leisha back home. Gondel, use a teleportation circle immediately, that is an order. Gondel did not hesitate and activated a magic circle as she teleported the group, Sekvera then asked. But she hoped that Issei did not do something reckless, however seeing his cold glare, she instinctively backed out, Ajuka was going to suffer. They soon teleported out leaving Issei, Miyuki, Quinella and Charlotte. Ajuka, what the fuck is wrong with you? Surziches meanwhile shouted at his friend, he attacked his own niece, with Ajuka speaking in disbelief. I didn't mean to, and Ajuka couldn't react as Issei dashed, he grabbed Ajuka by the throat as he slammed him to the ground. Ajuka coughed up as everyone watched in horror. You bastard. You first sell your niece and then hurt her. I will make you pay. Issei punched Ajuka in the chest so hard that it made the Satan cough up blood. Before he could recover, Issei flung him flying as he smashed onto a nearby wall as he coughed up even more. Issei was going to approach when he was surrounded by power of destruction. Turning his attention, he saw a furious Urziches using Ruin of Extinction. He was ready to kill him if needed in order to stop the monster in front of him. He knew this would at the very least stop him. I don't think so. Issei broke through the magic using Divine dividing its power quickly as he dashed to the Crimson Satan, and before he could react, he unleashed a concentrated blast of dark light at him. Surziches was consumed by this as he screamed in pain. Surziches was on the ground groaning with pain, he would kill him when he ruins him permanently. The other leaders and Grafia rushed to him. Issei then dashed towards Ajuka, who tried to use his barriers to protect himself, however. Penetrate. A voice rang from Issei's boosted gear as he broke through the barrier, his fists glowed with holy light. Issei then punched Ajuka so hard that he coughed up. Issei did not stop there, he grabbed Ajuka by the head and started smashing him on the ground. Issei knew almost everything of his power, including his Kankara formula, which when used, as long as Ajuka had information, he had absolute control of a magical and physical ability. But Issei did not let him process the information. He kept kicking him to the ground, making him cough up as he was on the ground groaning in pain. The next thing he saw was Issei holding the true Longinus in his right hand, with the Rock of Jerusalem in his left hand. Balance breaker. Gates of Babylon. Several portals opened up on Issei's command as several chains came onto Ajuka as Issei spoke. Your time has come, Asterisk. The chains pierced Ajuka's body, his limbs were pulled away from his body, and due to the holy property of the chains, he screamed in pain. Issei activated a concentrated light beam, he made sure to put some enchantments that would prevent Ajuka from tampering with it. The beam dealt some severe damage to Ajuka, making him shout in pain. Now you shall experience the full power of the juggernaut drive of my Rock of Jerusalem. Issei then started to chant the drive for it. I will tell you of the beginning. Heaven and earth split, nothingness congratulated creation, my sword of rupture cleaved the world. Mortar of the stars, heaven's hell is the eve of creation celebration. Now you shall die and be silent. Enuma Elish. Issei connected the rock to his spear as he generated a beam of orangish red aimed at Ajuka, making him scream in pain as he disintegrated into nothingness. He could not fight it back because he never truly understood what this juggernaut drive is capable of, as a result he couldn't control it, he was killed and there was nothing he could do. Issei took a deep breath due to how exhausting this move was. The leaders were too afraid to make a move, even Shiva and Indra were silent. Aten was fearful of the man in front of them, he was worried that Issei would kill him next. He turned to Grafia and Falbium, both of whom were shivering with fear on what Issei would do to them next. Falbium was crying due to his friend dying. This is your only warning, if I ever see you in my house ever again, I will kill you. Let me make this clear. Issei spoke, earning nods from many of the fearful leaders, he then teleported away letting the faction leaders mourn their loss. Issei could have killed them all, but he wanted to make them suffer, and suffering they shall have. Issei killed Ajuka, and now, he can kill anyone he wanted to. He fulfilled his promise of killing the leaders if he wanted to do so. Unknown to him that Gabriel followed him to his residence, despite the warning. Scene change, unknown location, 2 a.m. A blonde woman was walking across the hallway as she remembered the droid faction rampaging, she sighed. Her faction refused to join the alliance, primarily due to her race's beliefs. She also agreed with her factions, due to her hatred for the devil kind, she and the rest of her kind hated them. Their hatred for the devil kind extended all the way back to when the Great War. They helped the angels, but they voted out of the war when they saw the biblical God die. Well, we need to prepare ourselves, the woman talked as she went inside, she had to talk with the others on how they would be prepared for the war. They are on their own and may not survive this for much longer. Please go support RageRevan for writing that awesome fanfic. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching, if you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day, bye.